New York state law of a total of 1.6 million. So that's sort of the landscape, the backdrop against which this former president is arriving here to New York State and City, in addition to the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, as you've eloquently stated, what he comes to the table with, his campaign promise of suing President Trump 100 times, and what he will do if assumed office. You contrast that against what he has not done while in office, which is successfully prosecute so many career criminals here in this town and city that make it such a dangerous place for regular folks like me and for law enforcement here. It is really devastating, frankly, to see this play out. To me, again, just saying this as a now New Yorker who lives here, that feels so unsafe on my streets, that the statistics reflect 300% increase in ambushes against law enforcement, 22% increase in violent crimes here in this city of New York, and yet here we see a former president being indicted for a misdemeanor elevated to a felony on the back of a district attorney who has reduced 50% of the felonies here in the city to misdemeanors and has reduced violent crimes to reclassification of non-violent crimes. It's sickening to see, as Douglas says, we have yet to learn what will play out. We have yet to learn the contents of the indictment and what we expect to be around 34 charges tomorrow.
So they are pulling the stairs away from Trump Force One. They are getting ready for a scheduled departure was about 20 minutes ago, so they are really within a pretty tight window of when they said that they would be leaving. Douglas, I'm curious. I always want to know, because it seems like China plays the role right now of someone with a gun and a knife to our head. What do our enemies see when they see this?
Well, it's very interesting. I was in D.C. last week, and former Vice President Pence spoke to this just after the announcement had been made of the indictment of former President Trump. And as he said, you know, this gives us an amazing signal to our competitors and enemies around the world. You know, the Chinese and the Russians in particular say, you know, the whole system of democracy in America, it doesn't work. It's unstable. It doesn't give people the security they need, and that's why the Communist Party of China's version of things is right. And it's one of the things they constantly trot out.
Okay, that's right.
It's very
and they think that they can sell what they have, and they have people in concentration camps right now, the Uyghurs, and Muslim families there.
But listen, there is a point to be made here. The entire country is focused on these pictures right now, when we could be solving big problems.
Like an open border?
Well, like an open border, like inflation, like crime. We could be doing other things rather than being preoccupied.
So what about the Democrats when they say that they can walk and chew gum at the same time?
Right. Well, how many
that
politicians can do that, right? Exactly.
Well, I haven't actually handed them gum.
I think we should
try to trick them. But, so no, we haven't. But I mean, whenever I host a debate on you know, with the power panel every day on the Faulkner Focus, whenever we kind of go back and forth, what I hear is this drumbeat about how Democrats do things better and they stick together better in terms of fighting the other side, and that they're able to chew gum and walk at the same time and all of that. Look, I don't think our vice president can do that. If so, don't give her a stick of gum, because that would be like her ninth job. But I mean, we can joke about it because we want to find a light moment in this time. But we don't have anybody in charge of the border right now. I mean, they're calling for the resignation of the DHS secretary while this is going on. I mean, I asked you the question, what do our enemies think? I think our enemies look at this and say, oh my gosh, they're open for business.
Yeah.
Who can we call in the United States and just do anything we want to do with, because this is what they do to a man who obviously had treated China very differently than the current president.
Right. Well, and this is the time you fly the Chinese balloon over the country, right? I mean, we've seen this movie play out.
They already did it. Old material. That was last month.
Maybe we'll get another one.
All right. So as we watch this, we know that we are very, very close to the former president taking off for New York. We have watched during this hour, it's already been a very busy hour, a pretty good portion of the police commissioner and the mayor of New York City talking about all the preparations that they're going to take. Kaylee, you and I went to Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal Twitter page, not the Congresswoman's work one, but on her personal page, she has that word out that a couple of hours ahead of when he's scheduled to be in court tomorrow, Trump, that there's this rally that's going to take place in Lower Manhattan. You and I were pointing out, everybody who's in a thread says peaceful protest. Oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm not seeing any indication of that.
No, nor am I. I saw those same peaceful words that you did, but you heard in that press conference, be on your best behavior. Marjorie Taylor Greene is, that's a paraphrase, but essentially...
Is that a threat against the Congresswoman?
Hey, kind of feels that way. What I would say is, Jerry, you mentioned what a troubling precedent this sets for future presidents, and I would say, and add to that, what a troubling precedent this sets for every single citizen in this country who might have a government that is opposite of them politically. What does it mean for the Tom, Dick, and Harry who's sitting around and watching this, who perhaps gets on the wrong side, or as we saw most recently, puts out a meme, and then is prosecuted under federal election law? I encourage everyone, read that New York Times guest essay by that federal prosecutor, Anush Kardori. Here's a line that she had in there. This was from future Justice Robert Jackson more than 80 years ago, and he said, a prosecutor stands a fair chance of finding at least a technical violation of some act on the part of almost anyone. So think about that. That's why we have prosecutorial discretion, where we look at precedent. Is this typically brought, where Jim Comey said, look, there may be some sort of violation of law, but no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case against Hillary Clinton. And that same former FBI director now saying it's a very good day on the day that Trump was indicted. Wow, just stunning remarks.
We are watching the very tip of the plane. I believe they are next for takeoff. This is Palm Beach International Airport, and on board is the 45th President of the United States, facing now charges in criminal court following that indictment from last week under Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. We know him to be a political animal, to be rather thirsty on the left. How much will that play a role? We will watch and see how this unfolds. I love what Douglas said, our guest today on Outnumbered. You just don't know. We'll watch. We'll see. We'll see. We'll follow the facts in all of this. One thing that does come to mind for me is that we're seeing a flip. Kaylee, as you were describing how things are supposed to go, they're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But with this particular president, and now former president, it has been, or at least it assumes to be, this way. He's guilty. Let's find something he's good at. Let's figure out how we can make it look like he's guilty. And that is always complicated if you're not chasing the facts. And you run out of roadway, then where do you go? And for Alvin Bragg, yeah, he may be rising today. I've heard more than one person say, politically speaking, don't with it.
Because to them, the ends justify the means. You mentioned prosecutorial discretion, Kaylee. There's also a caliber. There's a standard that we see at the federal level, at least, that is quite more rigorous and vigorous than at this local level, and that's what we're seeing playing out here as well. So this is why, for example, the FEC and DOJ declined to prosecute here, sending the message undoubtedly that there wasn't enough to bring the weight of the federal government toward a charge. And yet here we have an elected official who now deems to find a there, who now deems to find that the ends justify the means, and you sort of lost that that gravitas, and you've lost that credibility, the caliber of the standard that, again, we depend on more at the federal government. And that's why also, as we talk about federal public officials, it's why it's usually reserved for the federal government, so that it takes away the tension between state governments and state, local elected officials who are so politically swayed. That's exactly the protection afforded them, because it takes that into account.
That is fascinating. Like, we know how to do this, but I guess we're choosing not to do it the right way. The former president of the United States is in a rather unique political position. Kaylee was mentioning all the money that's been raised since the indictment came down. I mean, in 48 hours, they raised $5 million. He's also in this position. No, he's not going to be talking about policy, but he's going to soak up every second of airtime. And if you're Biden, maybe that's why you don't announce, because there just simply is not enough oxygen in the room. Trump is taking it all up. His plane is getting ready to take off now. They are on the move on the tarmac. And this is what we have been watching for. And we don't know what destiny looks like on the other side of this trip when he gets here in New York City. But we do know what it has looked like up until this point. The president has called it a witch hunt. His opponents, the Democrats, have said they're only seeking justice. When they voted to impeach him, the Senate said, well, you can't kick him out. And there he sat, and he got stronger, much like Clinton, by the way. Bill Clinton was the same way. I mean, you made him stronger politically because you said he did these things, you voted that he did these things, but he stayed in the position, and he was able to make a difference in that. After those impeachments, after those times, we saw a lot from this president. I know his son-in-law worked with him on the Abraham Accords. There were a lot that went on that we don't talk about in his presidency very much. But all of that now, all of that legacy faces destiny on the other side of this trip. What are your thoughts?
It does. I just want to flag, we mentioned, his family with him on board. Eric Trump just posted a tweet saying, watching the plane from the plane.
They had a clearer view when they were getting on.
Yeah, so we know Eric Trump is at least there, perhaps some other family members. But, we reviewed this last week, but it's worth emphasizing again that when the New York Times surveyed election experts, they could not find one example ever in the history of the Manhattan DA bringing a charge for a federal election. Never in history. So why now is the question. Why now? As we referenced Justice Jackson, the former Justice Jackson, he went on to say this, to your point, Douglas. It is not a question of discovering the commission of a crime and then looking for the man who has committed it. It is a question of picking the man and then searching the law books or putting investigators to work to pin some offense on him. Those words ring true very much.
Real quick, Douglas. We've seen this gathering for a long time. Remember the Scooter Libby scandal during the George W. Bush administration? They went for him with a special prosecutor. They found something. It was all cooked up. He ended up going to jail. He was the right-hand man for the then vice president. The prosecutor said, give us the vice president. It didn't work then, but it was a very bad warning sign. Now, for the first time, we actually see all the way up to the president that justice is not blind in this country. And that is a Rubicon that we will dread having crossed.
As this plane is taking off, Emily, I had a question for you, and they pause now, so we really are on an imminent move. And as soon as that happens, we do want to watch. Just solely watch here. Let's give them another beat. I am, just always curious about the fact that no one talks about, at least I haven't heard it, this could go on beyond 2024. Like, how is that even?
On the basis of federal election law. Here in this city, it's just been used on the basis of federal law in general. And federal elections law is highly specialized, highly detailed, highly nuanced. And therefore, the novelty of this particular piggybacked charge, that's why it's so incredible, and that's why people are so incredulous, because for such a massively detailed, again, specialized body of law, the fact that, again, this local political animal, as you described him, has sort of charged himself with this, what he deems as a successful outcome for this, is quite shocking.
He forecasted. He didn't say that he wouldn't bring this case. People who say that didn't listen. They didn't read what he said. What he said was, I'm not going to bring it down. People started quitting. Remember that? Pomeranz, one of the attorneys in the DA's office when he took over from Cy Vance last year. And, oh, you're not going to bring charges against Trump. We're quitting. And he said, no, it's not a strong enough case right now. When I have what I think I could win, I'll come back. I guess that's what he thinks he has right now. You mentioned the wheels of justice. I'm watching the wheels on that plane. And I'm wondering if he were the former president of the United States, and you have been saying since the beginning, witch hunt, people are after me, they're going to keep coming for me, they don't want me to win, I'm winning, so on and so forth. You have heard it time and time again. And there will be, as far as we know, a rally in Lower Manhattan, and that will be about 10:30 in the morning, I think so, a couple hours before the former president makes his way to court. So all of that, though, they've got all these people to talk about what he normally is talking about, and they've got them right here in New York. What a backdrop. And what a backdrop. We all are watching history right now as the president is ready to take off for New York.
And I want to make a comment here. Earlier she said, this is a sombering moment for America. And when she said that, the first thing I thought of was the Kennedy assassination. we're looking at a modern version of the Kennedy assassination. It was a sombering moment for America then, and this is a sombering moment for America now.
So much bigger than the possible upside. So we're kind of signing our own death warrant here.
Yeah, what was interesting, again, I hate to go back to the same piece, but it really was fascinating in the Times. She actually goes on to write out what a case by a local DA would look like against Hunter Biden. She used the jurisdictions of Florida, Texas perhaps, where you could technically use local laws and do some fancy footwork, which is not what you should do when you're in laws. Emily can tell you, you look at precedent, you look at tradition, those things matter. Jim Comey, when he declined to bring charges against Hillary Clinton, or recommend them, I should say, he said this, and I quoted this in part paraphrasing: although there is evidence of potential violations regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. And he cited that part of the reason was he looked at how similar situations have been handled in the past. That is what you do when you are the FBI, when you are at the DOJ, when you are a Manhattan DA. But that clearly was not done here. And here we have, it seems to be, fancy judicial footwork to attack one individual because of his last name and his political party and his perhaps threat to the political ambitions of the left.
Yeah, can you talk to me, Douglas, about your thoughts about Trump running at this point? I mean, can he run for president while, as Emily laid out, this could take months?
Obviously, the Democrats are hoping that he can't, and this is going to tie him up. I think that's a serious miscalculation. The one thing we know immediately is, for instance, that all of the Republicans who are running against Trump, would like to run against Trump, are going to have to spend all of their time talking about Trump. And so he's not going to mind that. But some of those competitors will, some of the other Republicans in the field who will want to be talking about some of the subjects we've raised in the past hour, they won't be able to talk to that. They'll have to be talking all the time about Trump. So the Democrats are boosting Trump because they're doing this. Is this what they wanted all along? Well, quite possibly.
They're boosting him among his own party, which is problematic because the voters feel very differently, I would imagine, than the people who want to run against him. Look, it already happened. I mean, some of those who have already come out and declared, I mean, I'm sure you could have set an egg timer for how long it took for people to be asked, what do you think about Trump's situation? I had on Nikki Haley, she's at the border today. She laid out a really detailed plan, basically just shutting Biden's work right down. Right. And we got into it and we went on there and then we had a quick question because you can't ignore the news about Trump. And go ahead, Pierre.
Well, you can't ignore the news. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the show, is that perhaps the calculation by Democrats is we really prefer to run against Donald Trump. So this is why they're messing, as I said, with the electoral process to begin with, because they'd really like to see him run. They think they have a good chance against him. Again, I think this is a horrible way to go about managing Biden's prospects.
Yeah, I think there certainly could be something to that. I mean, to your point, this might be the only moment of Republican unity we see in the next year. Everyone is unified around this injustice.
The way that you say it is, Kaylee, you're like, look, just back the nominee. You always say that. Just back the nominee. Don't get divided. It's going to be some debates and some talk. Okay, this plane is now next in line. When we were watching before, we didn't have the purview of the entire tarmac. Apparently, this airport at Palm Beach International is very busy in West Palm Beach. And number 45 is ready for takeoff. Inside the plane, you mentioned Eric Trump, his son, is on with him. We couldn't see that from the people that were getting on. He just tweeted, watching the plane from the plane. And so there they go. And in the last 45 seconds of this show, the former president of the United States will come to New York City to face an indictment that will be unsealed tomorrow so the rest of the world can see what charges are against Donald J. Trump. And what will that look like? And what will he face at tomorrow's arraignment? On the other side of this flight, Trump will be in New York City. And we've already seen the police commissioner, the mayor, everybody getting ready, but they're doing the one thing that Jerry said. They're talking Trump. And they can't stop talking about him. We'll be covering every second. We kept our promise to do that, and now we promise to go straight to America Reports.
Harris, thank you. As we watch Trump Force One winging its way toward New York City, the former president on his way to face the first criminal indictment of a former U.S. president in history. Hello from Washington, I'm John Roberts. Hello to you today.
Great to be with you, John. I'm Jillian Turner and for Sandra Smith this afternoon. This is America Reports. So the former president just departed his home in Mar-a-Lago. He's got big plans to spend the night in Trump Tower before heading downtown to the courthouse. This tomorrow to face a reported 30-plus charge indictment from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. National correspondent Brian Yanis is live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan.
Okay.
Brian, how the next 24 hours is going to play out?
Okay. That's enough for this video. This is, I mean, I can imagine Antifa and the Democrats planning for another such violent event, okay, and making it appear that these are MAGA Republicans or these are his supporters who's committing the violence. And the thing is, if we learned anything from January 6th, is don't cry wolf every single damn time, because eventually your credibility will be shot. And I think when the commissioner said no violence, no violence, no violence, no violence, to which I said, yes, please use the word violent. No violence. Which is kind of like an invitation to be violent and make it appear that it's Trump supporters being violent. And it's like, no one's going to believe that. They're going to make it appear like January 6th did not have happened. And it's all brand new. No. It's the same story. It's the same tired rhetoric. It's the same tired agenda. It's all part of the same playbook. You know. And I'll be watching closely. And I will not be surprised if a violent eruption occurs and laying blame on Trump supporters. Won't be surprised. They did it once, they'll do it again. They're so predictable. They're so incredibly predictable, these Trump haters. So predictable. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I don't know. I think Faulkner did make a comment. This is going to open a Pandora's box, and it will set a precedent. They created a precedent when they tried to impeach Trump. Now we could turn the tables on Biden, Kamala, whatever her damn name is. I mean, she is the quintessential vice president. as I've often heard, vice presidents are usually the clueless and non-functioning member of the administration. And it was very refreshing how Pence broke that mold and became very functioning. Okay, anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you later. Ay, 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 ay. Alright. Take care. Alright. Bye.